Hey guys, before we dive into this week's episode, I've got a little offer for you. This year I launched my online studio, Mindful Moment, and I'd love for you to prioritise your own well-being and come and have a free trial. You'll get unlimited 24-hour access to my growing library of meditations, mindfulness techniques, breathwork and movement sessions, yoga classes, sound healing recordings, and more. Whether you got 2 minutes or a full day, and whether you want to improve your sleep, feel calmer, or let go of damaging thought patterns, there are sessions there to support you. All from the comfort of your own home on your own timetable. Go to lilysilverton.com/mindful-moment to start your free 7-day trial today.
I just kind of wish people would say, hey, look, here's me in a bikini. I look great. And I want you to see it. That's so human, you know? I've had times when someone's taken a beautiful photo of me and I'll actually find myself thinking, shall I go find a quote? Shall I reverse engineer this? Shall I make this like, oh, I look happy and I want to help people to be happy. So maybe I'm going to say that this is, and then I kind of think, sure, just put it up and say, don't I look nice? I want you to see, because it's kind of, I just want you to see how nice I look. And I just feel like there's a space for that.
Welcome to Priorities, the podcast about the things in life that really matter. I'm your host, journalist and coach Lily Silverton. And each week, along with a roster of incredible guests, I'll be exploring how priorities inform and transform our lives, sharing mindset tips, strategies, and inspiration to help you prioritize your own life. We'll be covering what we think is important and unimportant, what we'd like to work on more, and the moments that changed our priorities and lives forever. I hope you enjoy. My guest today is award-winning behavioural change specialist and author, Shahroo Izadi. Across her clinical work and 2 best-selling books, The Kindness Method and The Last Diet, Shahroo provides simple, evidence-based strategies for habit change and personal development. A regular speaker and expert voice, she's been featured on BBC Radio 1, The Telegraph, Red Magazine, The Pool, and Psychologies Magazine, among many others. And in addition to her private practice, she is a support group facilitator and therapist at Amy's House, a recovery house for women set up by the Amy Winehouse Foundation. Welcome, Shahroo.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's so lovely to have you on here. So where are we? We're Tuesday morning. Do you have a bit of a routine in the mornings?
My routine's been changing actually recently because I've changed where I live, and it's amazing the associations you have, like different parts of your home and what you do in different parts. But I like to write in the morning if I can. I tend to be one of those people who wakes up with a million thoughts and random anxieties that have come out of nowhere. And so I like to write. I drink coffee in the morning, and I've just started running. So I'm almost apprehensive to tell you about this in case by the time it comes out, I've stopped. But I've just started running and I'm really liking it. And I'm noticing myself first thing in the morning wanting to go for like a very quick run. I feel like it resets me. So yeah, little bits and pieces. I used to do a sort of journaling thing where I would project to the end of the day and think about how I wanted to feel and the tests that might come along and how I would respond. But now I actually just do that naturally in my head, which has been a lovely shift to notice.
That sounds great. So how, if someone wanted to do that who's listening, or if I wanted to do that, what would we do?
Well, what you would do is just draw a line down the middle of the page. I tend to keep a notebook by the kettle because I know I'm going there in the morning and there's going to be a couple of minutes while coffee's happening. And I just kind of write on one side what's likely to test me today or what's likely to make me want to procrastinate. And then on the other side, I write what I'm going to do if and when it happens. And it's extraordinary how just preempting it can help you to have that moment of not falling into the automatic reaction and saying, I guess this would happen. And seeing it as an opportunity to try a new response. So say, for example, if I get an email that I'm not delighted about, sometimes that can lend itself to me wanting to write back really hastily or something. And that, for me, is something that I always want to work on, that not to treat everything like an emergency. And so if I'm expecting that email, I'll think, okay, well, I'll probably get an email at 1 or so. And if it's not what I want to hear, then I'm probably going to tell myself that there's no point doing the next thing, or I should reply immediately, or I should compromise on my boundaries, on my price, or whatever. And I have made and I'm deciding right now that if and when that happens, I am going to try a new response. And it really helps.
This is what's so great to hear, right? Because you're an expert behavioural change specialist. You've done it for so many years, and yet, of course, you still have to do it yourself.
Yeah, we're all starting from different places too. There'll be people who read my book who will be like way ahead of me. And I think that's the thing to kind of remember, is that we all have different baselines. I mean, I've, no less than transformed compared to where I was before. But for example, there'll be some people for whom anxiety or overthinking or ruminating or second guessing themselves was just never a thing they needed to work on or wanted to work on anyway. Mm. So I think we all have our own little areas that we're working on. It's all about progress from your own baseline, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's start with one of your priorities that you sent over. So since you talked about running, and we're kind of into that vibe already, let's talk about what was your second priority, which was self-care, mental health, including counselling and exercise. So can you expand that a little bit?
Yeah, I used to behave as though the things that I did for myself that no one else directly benefited from were things that could take a back seat if other priorities came in. And I've turned that on its head. And now there are certain things that I will just, when you ask me, what are your priorities? I thought to myself, what are the things that I will not compromise for, that I will not let other people's priorities or needs get in the way of me addressing and prioritizing? And yeah, one of them is definitely counselling. As a practitioner myself, I think it's responsible for me to be talking to someone about stuff that comes up for me through those conversations. But also just having, it's a luxury, but having that space where I can sit and reflect on my week and how I feel I could have done it better, what it brought up for me, reflecting on how different things are for me now than a year ago, etc. So that's really important. And exercise, it just has that shift of making exercise about my mental health and noticing the difference when it comes to things like anxiety has made it so it's impossible for me to pretend that it's not really, really important. So any movement has just become integral to my day-to-day well-being, and I will prioritize it. But if you told me a few years ago that I'd say let's say friends wanted to go out for cocktails, and I'd say, oh no, first I need to go do a spin class or something, I mean, I would never have believed you. And now I know that they're going to get a better version of me, whether they know it or not. And I'm going to be calmer. I'm going to feel more positive. I'm going to have more perspective, and all of those things benefit every aspect of my life. So I don't compromise.
So you don't compromise on that.
Mm.
How did that shift occur to you? So you say it's just been a couple of years.
When I wrote the first book, I noticed that I had a lot of, natural self-doubt. And I started going to spin classes at the time. And for some reason, I noticed that after a spin class, I'd come away thinking, I've got this. There's a reason that I've been, that the people who know what they're talking about have chosen me for this job. And there's a reason that I'm doing well. And yet when I wasn't exercising, I noticed that my anxiety levels were a lot higher. I was far more inclined to focus on the negatives and the risks and what about the reviews. And it just helped to shift my perspective. And it was the only thing that I had found at that point that kind of got me out of my head. And I was getting really good ideas. And so all of a sudden, because my entire life I had thought that up to that point, exercise was about controlling my weight or changing my body. And when I saw what it was doing, specifically in the context of writing a book for me, and this huge pressure of doing something that I was doing in complete isolation, I saw that it was helping me notice what I was so grateful and excited about, and what I was great at, as opposed to noticing the other legitimate stuff, like it could go wrong and all of that stuff. I just seemed to focus more on the potential. And that seemed to come as a direct result of the exercise. And so I just kept wanting more of that perspective shift. And sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and I'd think I would think, oh, I bet I'm going to start doubting myself. And then I bet after I do a bit of exercise, I'm going to all of a sudden be flooded with all the reasons why this is an amazing thing. And so that it helped me to do that. And that was absolutely priceless, because it turned the process of writing the book into an exciting, I don't like to use the word journey, an exciting process. Yeah. I'm allergic to the word journey.
Yeah, it's not one that I warm to particularly, let's say. And that's really the most sustainable approach, right, to anything. So rather than an end goal of weight loss or whatever it is, you're working with what makes you feel really good. And so paying attention to that day to day and being responsive to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a huge shift for me, is being able to trust my body and being able to kind of know that my body was telling me what was working for me and what wasn't, as opposed to always handing myself over to an expert or a guru or someone telling me like, this should feel good, this shouldn't feel good, this food should make you feel like this food shouldn't, I just kind of gave myself permission to trust myself and how I was feeling and what was right for me, and provided it wasn't harming me or anyone else, to kind of go with it for a while. And it turned out to be the right way. And I haven't really looked back.
So simple and yet so powerful.
Thank you.
So do you like those spin classes where they shout enthusiastically at you from the front and there's lasers?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a signed up member of that cult. Don't at me. Do you know what? I never thought I would be. So much time makes a hypocrite of everyone. Honestly, I never thought I would be. So many of the things I do now, I just think, oh my God, if you told me, I would be cringing at myself. But yeah, totally. I'm totally up for that. Dark room, yell at me. But yell good stuff, yell positive stuff. I'm really not into the whole boot camp vibe. I just don't think it helps. It just makes me want to cry and run away. And I never want to go back. Whereas when it's affirmative, yeah, I'm really quite up for that stuff. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely love it. I'm looking forward to getting back into it.
Me too.
At some point soon. So how would you define self-care? Because obviously it's quite a weird one. In that, what do people associate with it? What does self-care mean to you? I assume it's not just a bubble bath.
No, it's so funny you say that, because I was just about to say, if one more person says having a bath. No, it's not that. In fact, if I'm perfectly honest, a lot of the self-care that I do involves discomfort. It involves things like, I have quite codependent tendencies. And sometimes I have to sit in the discomfort of someone telling me something I didn't like, or trying not to overly please someone, or trying not to, to sit in the discomfort of conflict and things like that, or someone not wanting to work with me, or this is the sort of self-care, the boundaries, and the protecting myself, and the letting myself see that things will be okay if I stand my ground and, have an opinion that someone else doesn't agree with. Because I know that I have the capacity to win people over, and like stopping myself to doing that has been a huge lesson in self-care for me. And so yeah, boundaries and that codependency stuff is that's probably one of the biggest pieces of self-care that I do, which isn't having a bath.
Yeah. I guess also being essentially a freelancer, running your own company, there is so much of that. There are so many opportunities for that kind of rejection, and the energy that's needed to put yourself out there and pursue all of your many endeavors, whether it's sort of the speaking engagements or the sort of practice work that you do, consultant work, coaching, writing, etc., and managing all of those simultaneously. You got to get pretty on top of it, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you kind of have to know what you're giving, and know that there will always be a person on each side of the spectrum. There'll be someone who thinks, for example, that you're really underpriced, and then someone who thinks that you're really overpriced. And actually individuals, not as much, but like working with companies, for example, you'll work with one company, because this whole wellness or whatever industry we're in is relatively new, right? So we're all kind of setting a precedent, and you either see that as like, wow, we're the first wave of people being able to set a precedent here and tell other women, especially, like, you can charge more and all of this stuff. And then on the other hand, some massive company will tell you that they don't have much of a budget, and you'll kind of think, oh gosh, what does that mean about me? And this constant back and forth with the self-doubt stuff. Yeah, you have to know who you are and what you're offering, and that it's of value. And of course, I've had the luxury of having, people feedback on a book, and this sort of mainstream everyday validation, which helps, of course, but not as much as you'd think, not as much as doing the work on yourself and kind of thinking, this is what I'm offering, and it's of value, and it works, and it's for some people and not for other people. And realizing that invariably, as you grow, there will be a proportion of people who aren't coming with you, and that's okay too. And I think remembering stuff like that really is an example of self-care too, and not kind of going with the wind and letting other people define who you are based on an email. I think also not doing things on other people's agendas has been a huge realization for me too. Like when I first started in this industry, I felt so lucky to be here that if someone said, I want this by the end of the day, I would just assume that that's what you had to do, or else I would lose that opportunity. And then I started realizing, you know what, successful people are not defined by 1 or 2 or 10 opportunities. They will keep coming, and you don't need to be working on other people's agendas. And actually, when you get brave enough to push back, 9 out of 10 times, the other person will be like, you're absolutely right. Yeah, here's a few more days. So that's also been, just because someone else wants to treat it like an emergency, and also realizing some people are really good at that. And I used to resent it, and now I kind of admire them. I want to be like them. They'll be like, oh, I just wanted a cheeky ask. And they're really good at that, especially journalists, if I may.
I was about to say, I think that's...
I saw a tweet the other day that said, journalists will say, hey, I need this in half an hour. And then they will also say, I'm sorry, I haven't been in touch for 3 months. And it's just, you have to kind of remember that if those opportunities are coming now, they will continue to come, and you don't have to work on other people's agendas.
Yeah, it's a very common journalistic approach. And also, to be fair to journalists, it's generally coming from above. So from editors saying, this needs to be done right now. But then the piece gets pushed back a month or whatever it is, or 2 months.
Yeah, you can tell that. And actually, I think there's a lot of transparency there too, which I love. Working with journalists as much as I do, there's always I love that regardless of how urgent things are, I guess because you're great writers, there's a zoom out where you'll be given a sort of landscape of things, like this is when I have to hand it in by, this is when it needs to be checked by, this is the pressure I'm being put under. And all of a sudden everything changes, So that always helps enormously. And actually that's the lesson that I've learned when I'm asking other people for stuff. This is, to say, I don't just want this ASAP because I love getting stuff done today. This is the process it's about to go through.
I thought what you said before as well was really interesting and really spot on in terms of being strict about your own value. So especially that pricing thing, and especially for women, because women underprice themselves, as we know, especially freelancers. And really honing in on that so that you are being as strict as possible with your own value, so that everything you do say yes to feels really aligned with where you're going. And also you're much less likely to burn out because you're doing the things that you want to do, or the things that really work at the price that you want for the work that you're going to do.
And you need to be motivated to do it, right?
Mm.
That's really important too.
Yeah, that's definitely been a big lesson that I've taken away actually from the pandemic, from teaching and operating less in physical spaces and giving less talks, is that all my prices were too low.
Yeah.
You had the same. So I hope it will work when I come back out. Okay, so another one of your priorities is your work with Amy's Place. Tell us about Amy's Place.
Yeah, Amy's Place is a recovery house for young women that's set up by the Amy Winehouse Foundation. And it's where young women in recovery who've just come out of residential rehab and are not using anymore will have 2 years to live in this amazing place and have their own flats and access all this support, so that then it's like a bridge back into independent, proper, really independent living. And I started working there as a volunteer a couple of 4 years ago or something. And now I'm a sort of retained staff member every other week. And there are very few things that will stop me turning up for that. And they know, it's my favorite thing that I do by far. Like if I had to wake up at 4 a.m., I would do it. And it's impossible. I just adore it. I absolutely love it. And the things that these young women manage to do and achieve and get through, and the self-awareness and the self-compassion that they've committed to, just continues to blow me away. And it just feels like an honor to be in their orbit. And I just absolutely adore it. In fact, if I'm on holiday doing something that you would think would be, more fun than sitting in a tiny therapy room, I will miss it. And I've actually noticed myself booking things around my days at Amy's place, even if, I legitimately should take some time off or whatever. I absolutely love it there. It's my favorite thing.
So how many young women are there in the program at any one time?
I think there's like 16 or 18 at any one time, but now we've had cohorts go through. And so I'll like stay in touch afterwards with a lot of them, and they'll be living in London. And I'll just become a person in the world who they can call on if they want to, although it becomes more that they're, teaching me through managing to do extraordinary things. But yeah, I know I shouldn't say this, but I love them. I really do. And I love that place. And it's my favorite. And it also reminds me of working in services, which, although was probably the hardest part of my job when I worked in substance misuse, I've never had an experience where a whole day feels like 10 minutes, other than when I was working in alcohol and other drug services. And everything, it's just very real and important. And I didn't feel important, which is quite a nice feeling, whereas now with all this like influencery stuff and the Instagrammy stuff, it just feels like it's all about you, and that's okay too. And that has its place. But I think it's important to kind of, as my friend says, zoom out. And that perspective is extraordinary. And also the fact that you're able to have connection with one person who tells you their story and trusts you with it and has reached out to us for help, and how difficult that is. It just feels like a very important relationship that I've never been able to find anywhere else, nor would I really want to. I think that's kind of where I belong in a lot of ways.
Such an incredible program as well, because of the duration of it in terms of support, because so many people come out of residential facilities and are thrown back into the real world pretty quickly with very little support offered to them. And so the rate of going back or into that place is very high from my understanding. So to offer a 2-year program is really quite staggering.
Yeah, it's very unique. And I think the foundation have done an extraordinary thing. They just do such great work with young people. They have this thing called the Resilience Program too, where they go around to schools and give talks on substance misuse from people who are actually in recovery. And it's not that rubbish that I had when I was younger, where the police would come in and tell you scary stories. And it's like relatable, and people who look like you and are thriving. And it's just a really special place. And you're absolutely right. I used to work in criminal justice before I went into consultancy, and there was a real problem with like that through the gate support, where people would come out and, despite all the fantastic work that was done while they were in prison with key workers and counselors, etc., group work, there was not that structure in place to have them go back into a different life. And so that's something extraordinary that the foundation does. And I just can't shut up about that place. I just think it's amazing. I feel so proud to be part of it.
What are some of the myths around addiction, Shahroo?
I think people see addiction as a problem as opposed to a solution. I think that's the fundamental shift that needs to take place, is that very often what is a problematic habit is a solution to something. I think also people underestimate certain addictions. Like a lot of the girls, talk about their relationship with food and find that a lot more difficult on a day-to-day basis to deal with because abstinence is not an option. I think a lot of the time people focus on what's wrong with addictive behaviors as opposed to thinking about what's right about them. How are they serving someone? What job have they done for them? How did they come about with compassion? I think that people think that people in addiction they're so wrong in that they think that they're sort of like missing certain life, certain knowledge or wisdom or abilities, when actually it's incredibly hard to be in addiction. And it requires an extraordinary amount of resilience and resourcefulness a lot of the time, which if given the right support, can make people come out what we call better than well, which is kind of like where you go into recovery feeling like you need to do some work, some sort of remedial work on yourself and deal with some stuff and some healing, etc. But having gone through the process of the exercises that you do and the connections that you make and the support you establish, you come out more equipped than the general population to deal with day-to-day stuff. And I saw that happen during lockdown. I saw it in my clients. So in the initial lockdown, the girls at Amy's and other people in addiction who I speak to regularly and in addiction services from who I worked with before were reporting that people were doing really well, because these were people who already knew the importance of routine, who already knew the importance of staying connected and support and mutual aid and daily inventory and gratitude and all this stuff that I was writing articles about in mainstream magazines. And professing to be an expert on. These are the people I was drawing from, these people who are stigmatized in society and often thought to be less capable. And that just, it actually really angers me, if I'm perfectly honest. It really angers me. So yeah, those are just the ones off the top of my head. If I had time, I could just write an entire book on all the things that people in addiction. Well, I actually have done that. I don't know. That's exactly what I've done. I'm absolutely in awe of them. And I feel like a large majority of the people I speak to who are in long-term recovery could have written my book in their sleep. And so I think it's appalling that people in recovery and indeed people in addiction are stigmatized or treated poorly at all, ever.
Where actually there's a lot that can be learned from them.
Yeah. And there's a huge pool of resources there, especially when it comes to personal development.
I hate nothing more than an afternoon lost to Googling, particularly when it's for products or methods to support my well-being. So I'm thrilled that this episode of Priorities is sponsored by Healthy Living Store, the simple online one-stop shop for quality wellness products and expert advice. Their aim is to make living healthy simple, and they take a full 360-degree approach to health, incorporating nutrition, movement, mental health, and sleep to help support even those who are normally pretty skeptical of well-being. I'm a big fan of the Fatigue Fix tincture, and I'm also currently eyeing up a new ergonomic home office chair as well. Healthy Living Store are kindly offering any listener £10 off their first order with £35 minimum spend. You simply need to use the code LILY10. Check them out on www.healthylivingstore.co. That's healthylivingstore.co with the code LILY10. I guess a lot of people who go through those experiences also often go into this kind of work themselves. I know quite a few people who went through addiction who went on to study and become psychotherapists or work in those areas because there's such felt knowledge there.
Yeah, there's nothing like an expert by experience. I mean, it is a different role, and for that, I think it is important. But yeah, more and more drug and alcohol alcohol and other drug services are trying to change that. Myself are becoming peer mentors and going through the process of learning about the helping relationship, etc. Because mutual aid and things like AA, for example, is a totally different thing, where power dynamics and hierarchical structures and things that they don't come into it in the same way as when you're responsible for someone, you're assessing risk, you're holding space for them, if you will. These are all things that, but I think you can never learn what it feels like to be in the position that your client is in. And that is an extraordinary asset that I'm just really glad that the expert by experience is being respected.
What do you think of our government's response to alcohol and drug?
I mean, that's for a different soapbox. But yeah, in general, awful. The fact that funding gets cut, the fact that there are so many initiatives that kind of feel like a slapdash approach to things. The fact that I do think that for the most part in this country, compared to say countries like Portugal, we're looking at addiction as a problem, as a continued problem to solve, as opposed to a solution to all sorts of systemic and social issues that are far more ingrained and more complicated to deal with. But yeah, I find it absolutely infuriating. You know, I think anyone who works in addiction on the ground will tell you that the war on drugs is a war on, as Gabor Mate says, I believe it's him, it's a war on drug addicts. And so therefore a war on the most vulnerable people. It's infuriating. I'd really like to have a big part in changing that. And also, you know, in terms of things like obesity too, you know, the obesity strategy that came out last year was insulting and patronizing. And if I could swear, I would swear a lot right now about it. It really, it's horse shit, like absolute horse shit, and clearly written by people who don't understand. And it suggests that knowing about calories and just nothing, it doesn't take into consideration the socioeconomic aspects. It doesn't take into consideration the fact that food is so often used as a comfort, that additional weight is often the byproduct of binge eating disorders that have come as a direct result of dieting and restricting, and that just so happens that that's what happens to some people's bodies. There will be other people who have the same disordered eating patterns who are wildly underweight, and there is no difference. We're talking about disordered eating. I mean, there's just, I could get on my soapbox about this, but I think the government have got it wildly wrong.
It does often feel like, who are the experts that they're using for these things? Because they don't seem like the people on the ground who truly understand this stuff.
Quite.
Okay, we could go on this slightly.
I mean, I could rant all day about the government.
Move on to your third, which is your mum, which I love. Your mum, her health and her happiness. Is she in London as well?
In London?
Mm-hmm.
My mum lives in Surrey, actually, where I grew up. And my mum, she's just wicked. She's just, I shouldn't say that because people who don't use the word wicked will think I mean she's evil. She's brilliant. My mum is a great example of someone who's as strong as she is kind, and she's honest, and she really gets straight to the point, and her advice is extraordinary. She doesn't judge me, but she says exactly what the hell she wants. I just feel really lucky. And a few years ago, my mum got ill. And at the time I thought I was okay. And I was kind of going through the motions of being okay, thinking that it would be helpful to her if I didn't make myself, if she didn't have to take care of me and how I felt about it. But then I just noticed myself breaking down randomly and had to really sit with the fact that she's unbelievably important to me. So I can't imagine anything that anyone could need from me that would make me put it ahead of anything my mum would need from me ever. Not that she ever needs anything. Maybe that's partly why. But I'm just feeling wildly lucky to have the mum that I have. And, she's always been like a proper feminist. And I don't think I ever gave her credit for that, or really understood the extent to which she was. And she's just always focused on the things that I realize now I'm focusing on. And I know it's such a cliche, but I wish I'd listened to her sooner about a lot of stuff, like about knowing your worth and knowing your value and not seeing any difference between what you should get and what a man should get. And yeah, just not placing importance on doing stuff to please other people. And she never has. So she's been a wonderful example in that sense.
She sounds great.
She's wicked. And she's also very almost rude. But when you know her, not rude is the wrong word, but she will just say it. She'll just say whatever the hell she likes. And when you know her, you realize it's like her superpower and it's hilarious. And she'll come straight back. If you tell her like, hey, that was rude, mum will go, okay, cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand why you thought that. And then it'll be over. Whereas I'm like this anxious, ruminating kind of, oh, did I upset them? Did I not? And mum will be like, it's over. Remember, we had that conversation and it was over and they're fine. So we're moving on now. So yeah, she's goals. She's also very like stylish, and yeah, I got a lot of time for that lady.
Oh. Was she, so when you got into your work, was she an inspiration? Sounds like quite an inspiring mother /
yeah.
in your life.
I think because I think what I'm saying with the kindness method, because a lot of people think, well, if I'm kind to myself, am I just doing whatever the hell I want all day? And how does that help me to change my habits? My mum is as strong as she is kind, and has made me realize that kindness is often about making a decision today, you'll be happy you made tomorrow. And has helped me move away from that quick fix mentality and helped me to reframe discomfort as often a part of the process. And yeah, I mean, she is, as I say in the second book, she is proof that kindness and strength absolutely go hand in hand. So yeah, absolutely, she inspires me.
From something that very much inspires you, someone, to something that doesn't. So what's an area that you do not prioritize at all, that you couldn't care less about?
Being an influencer. I mean, I really can't. I don't want to be aspirational. Do you know what? I keep saying that, but I don't think I am anyway. So, so problem solved. It's like I'm 36, and a couple of years ago, I said to my friend Grace, I don't think I want to be a young bride. And she was like, I think that ship sailed, mate. I don't think that's your choice. But yeah, I don't like the idea of someone feeling bad about themselves as a result of me indulging myself and showing them what's great about my life and giving them, we've all heard it before, but like this highlights reel or a snapshot where I'm, on a beach or no, thank you. I just don't want people. I don't mind inspiring. I think that's a great way of using social media. But people aspiring to be like me, aside from the fact that I don't like the dynamic of it. I don't want that pressure on myself at all. I want to be able to just fail and deviate from what I said and change my mind. I think this responsibility that people have to their public can become harmful to themselves as well down the line. I don't see how we're going to have influencers in their 70s. Like, where is this going? If you're basing your business model on making other people feel less than in order to be more like you, I just don't see where this is going. We're going to have like old lady influencers, like being like, here's me and like the coolest care home in the world. Like I just don't see it. With my frappuccino, whatever. So yeah, I don't want to be aspirational at all, and I could care less about being an influencer. If I can put something out and some of it's on Instagram, and it helps people, or it makes people laugh, or it makes people think that we're all the same, then, or it's me saying, hey, I'm proud of myself for having achieved this thing, and other people want to celebrate with me. Fantastic. But I don't want to be someone who's saying, look at my cool life. Don't you wish you were like me? No, thank you.
It would also, I guess, massively get in the way with the value of your work and the approach with your work, if that was the kind of approach you had.
Yeah, totally. But you know what? The interesting thing is, even as I say this, it feels so indulgent because no one's asking me to be that way. I think I just have this. I had this real block around joining Instagram in the first place, because that's all I associated it with. But then I look at accounts like yours, I look at accounts like other people's who I really admire, and I think, wow, you've used this medium to get across clear and useful information. And if I can do that, then fantastic. But sometimes I do get angry because I have so many conversations, especially with women who are comparing themselves to people on social media. And sometimes they'll describe them as people who are talking about self-esteem or personal development. And I'll kind of think, oh, there's a Venn diagram on which me and that person exist together. And I really get kind of defensive about being confused about what I'm trying to do. But as I say, that issue hasn't actually come up, so it's pretty arrogant of me to think that it might. No one's trying to be like me anyway. Anyway, well, so yeah, I would just never want that.
There's no there. Yeah, you have that a lot with sort of yoga or self-development accounts where it's like a lot of pictures of whoever that person is in a bikini. And that's the extent of their content. So it's sort of self-love, but most of it is just pictures of them in a bikini.
Yeah.
And those always worry me slightly. Of course.
But they get you followers and that gets the bills paid.
Yourself in a bikini, then, that's your right. Absolutely. But it grates on me slightly.
I just kind of wish people would say, hey, look, here's me in a bikini. I look great. And I want you to see it. That's so human, I've had times when someone's taken a beautiful photo of me, and I'll actually find myself thinking, shall I go find a quote? Shall I reverse engineer this? Shall I make this like, oh, I look happy and I want to help people to be happy. So maybe I'm going to say that this is, and then I kind of think, sure, just put it up and say, don't I look nice? I want you to see, because it's I just want you to see how nice I look. And I just feel like there's a space for that. But then I guess I have the luxury of being a little bit older than most of the people who I'm talking about now too. And who knows what I would have done if I had social media 15 years ago and I looked like that. But I feel like I'm sort of letting down the version of me, the body that I lived in for 90% of my life by now, just like turning on a dime and being like, I wrote a book and now I tell people what to do with their lives. And so look at me smiling and then giving you a quote that I obviously Googled to be able to put up this picture. Just say you want to put up the picture. We all like looking nice. So yeah, but again, do you know what? Even as I'm saying this, the number of things that I've been a hypocrite about, in 3 years' time, we might be talking and be like, hey, Shahroo, I noticed you were doing that hashtag ad and you were in a bikini and you were intentionally trying to make me feel shitty about myself. So let's hope not. But yeah, hopefully
there was a meme going around a little while ago, which was like, it's just a mirror selfie. There's no need to bring Gandhi into it. I really like.
It's so true. It's like, just say you like how you look. And me too, I like how I look. I'm very proud. But it's natural, and when you see other people doing anything, you normalize it. And ultimately it's harmless, on a zoomed in level, it's harmless. It's when you get these huge platforms, you get people, young women coming and talking to you and saying, I feel like I'm less than, I feel like I feel like, why am I doing a job that requires me to sit at a computer? Why am I not doing a job that requires me to get in a helicopter? It's just like, because no one does, babe. The person in the helicopter, it's not their helicopter.
That shoot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about the moment in your life where your priorities shifted very quickly. When was that?
I volunteered a couple of years ago in Samos at a refugee camp. And the reason I said that quickly is because I hate kind of like making it sound like it's about me and I'm a great person or whatever. But I realized there that before that, whenever I thought about making money, I felt guilty. I felt guilty for charging a lot because I knew that I knew that I wanted to get more Ubers and eat more lunches out and drink more cocktails. And that's fine. But there was something in me that didn't push me, because there's no maximum amount of that you could do. There was no sort of tangible thing that I could do that was exciting me. And then I went to Samos and I realized that how much I can help if I could work for free. And so from that point on, I didn't look back. I knocked up my prices. I knew exactly what I was making money for. I was making money so that I could work for free and go do something that I thought was really, really important. And I also realized when I came back, I remember being on the plane and I realized that from this point on, whatever happens in my life, the worst day I can possibly imagine is still the best day that so many people can imagine. And I couldn't believe what I saw. And I just stopped caring about a lot of stuff that was weighing me down. And I started thinking that I knew why I wanted to earn good money. Don't get me wrong. I also want to earn it because I do like cocktails and I do want a big house. And I do like not, if someone says, hey, want to go to Barcelona? I want to say, yeah, without looking at my bank account. That's all dreams too. But that thing I needed to say, this is my price. And I know where I'm putting that money. And I don't, if you don't want to pay it, someone else will. And it's really worked. It just changed my perspective entirely on money in general and how much more helpful I could be for free if I asked for what I was worth.
What I'm hearing is that it kind of cemented your purpose.
Yeah. I want to work. Yeah. My purpose is to be able to work for free, I guess.
I work in quite a similar way. A lot of my work is with refugees. I teach teenage refugees meditation and mindfulness and working with children with special needs and so on. Lots of various charity projects. And I really feel the same way especially when I'm working with very big companies who say, oh, I don't have budget. That's always the times where I'll say, I don't have enough, or they don't have enough budget for that. I'll always say no, because me doing that enables me to also do these free projects. And that's
quite.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I want to talk to you about that, please, after.
Okay. Yeah. Finally, what's an area you'd like to improve on? What do you want to prioritize more?
I really want to get over this idea that I have to have everything ready and perfect before I launch something online so that I can help more people and talk to more people on a day-to-day basis, as opposed to just doing private coaching. Because if I tell you the number of incredibly knowledgeable people who've done amazing online courses and stuff, and they will always just say, just start, just do it, just put it out there, start, you'll learn as you go. But the idea of letting people down or feeling overwhelmed just keeps stopping me. And I'm starting to feel regretful when I don't do it. And regret is not something that I've really experienced before. And so I'm really trying to get on top of that kind of like, it's not going to be perfect. You're never going to get it perfect. It'll take you years to do the things that you think you're going to be able to do and then launch it. And then what if no one buys it anyway? So yeah, I think it's that kind of just get going and the rest and the problems will present themselves. And the problems that you think, just like everything else, the problems you think you're going to have, you probably won't. And the problems you can't even imagine are going to present themselves. And my whole thing is believing in your capacity to spontaneously deal with things, which I totally do. So I think there is an element of like, come on, Shahroo, just put it out there, do it. You can handle whatever comes up. Bite the bullet. Excuse me. So that's what I'd like to work on. Just get on with it. It's never going to be perfect.
And how do you work on that?
By doing something right now today. I love that you clearly know the right questions to ask me as well. By just getting on with it and kind of remembering that people with far less opportunity to know that it's going to be okay have managed to do far more than I have. I do have a bunch of people from the books and everything who already know that my stuff works, who know where I'm coming from, who aren't going to misunderstand me. There are all these hurdles that I won't personally have to jump over. And so I want to use that privilege and get on with it. Even talking to you about it now, sometimes you just need other people to ask you the questions that you ask people every day. Like I help people launch their businesses all the time. It's a huge part of my job. Yeah. And I think sometimes as practitioners, you kind of have to realize that maybe you're hiding behind that. And that doing your own thing and getting in front of the camera and all that stuff is hard.
And letting go of that fear of failure, of rejection, and of things not being perfect, of accepting that things will never be perfect.
Yeah, I think it's the perfectionism bit, isn't it? And it's that thing, like even after I wrote the books, every time I'd have a new idea or read about a new piece of research, I was like, oh, God, that would have been great. I really wish I'd put that in. But yeah, they won't be perfect. And I've been very, very lucky. I'm not saying I haven't worked hard or that I don't have something good to hand over, but I've also been very lucky in that I'm pretty certain that when I do an online course or whatever that ends up looking like, it will do well. So kind of get on with it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's beginning of May. So when can we expect your online course?
I love this. Well, the kindness method is being re-released at the end of May. So I was thinking sort of July. I want to do something around binge eating and weight management as a result of binge eating, because I can't help but notice people have started, I don't know how to say this, but people who are doing kind of problematic stuff and only now realizing that it's kind of problematic are coming to me and using my approach with the last diet to make what they're doing more legit. I'll just say it. And there've been a handful of people who've copied what I've done, and it's made me very upset. Some of those people have pretty big platforms, and I've seen it happen, and it's upset me. So I want to do something around binge eating and weight management for people who are not happy with their weight as a direct result of all the damage that dieting has done with all or nothing thinking, etc. And I want to do a product for people who want to manage how they drink as opposed to stop drinking altogether. So I've said it now. It's in the world. It's coming out this summer. I love this conversation. I'm very grateful to you.
For the re-release of the kindness method, which has this amazing quote on it, which compares you to Brene Brown from
Oh my God. 27th of May. It says, Britain's answer to Brene Brown. And sometimes I have to sit and actually just look at that quote and try to make my brain, it's like looking at the sun or something. You know, when you're just like, how am I supposed to internalize this? I still can't get over the fact that I go into Waterstones and my book's looking back at me. I would like walk past it because I can't absorb the fact that this has happened to me. And I think I have to just get on board with the fact that I'm going to need to start moving forward before I absorb stuff, because it's all too much to absorb. And maybe I don't really want to absorb it. Because maybe I have things around what it means to absorb that and the sort of person it makes you, walking around all day being like, look at me in a bookshop. I don't know. It's very difficult unlearning all that stuff from childhood where, the worst insult you could be told as a girl when you were younger, she loves herself. And now it's what I get paid to help people do, and it's what I pay other people to help me do. So a lot of it's unlearning.
Repatterning.
Yes, quite.
Oh, it's been so lovely talking to you, Shahroo. Such an honor.
You too. Really, this has been a lovely conversation.
I can't wait to try your course in July.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me the questions that make me, have made me say that aloud. So I guess it's happening now. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of Priorities, I'd really appreciate it if you could make it your priority today to hit subscribe and also rate and review, as this helps other people find it. Need a little incentive? Every month, I offer one free 6-month membership to my online studio, Mindful Moment. All you have to do is hit subscribe, rate, review the podcast, and then email a screenshot of your review to podcast@lilysilverton.com for a chance to win. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.